The Sunbreaker Titan in Destiny 2 is still one of the strongest subclasses in the game thanks to its 3 aspects and how well they all pair together. Now normally you will see people running the Bonk hammer build, which has been around for years now, and don't get me wrong, it is still great. But for me personally, I want to feel that destructive power. I want to see huge ignitions with Solar 3.0, and just throwing my little squeaky throwing hammer over and over just doesn't cut it for me anymore. I also hate chasing it down if I miss my target, and don't even get me started if it goes off a ledge or a cliff. All the gameplay you're watching is from the GrandMaster Nightfall and from 1610 Master Lost Sectors, so you can see the power of this build for yourself. It truly is the Titan power fantasy I have always wanted in Destiny 2. So for me personally, I really enjoy the 3.0 Solar Titan because its new melee aspect called Consecration. This bad boy just delivers on that power fantasy of a Titan because it causes literal destruction and instant ignitions. I'm going to give you guys 2 ways to play into this build with 2 different exotics. So it is up to you on how you want to play this build because these 2 exotics are interchangeable. You can either go the high damage route, so more damage overall, but we sacrifice some ability spam for that damage, which turns it into more of a glass cannon, since we can't feed our abilities over 5 seconds like you can with the second route, which provides a bit less damage but more ability uptime, which equals more survivability because more ability kills will just make that many more sunspots, and that's thanks to our second aspect. Now in both ways though, we still have great survivability thanks to sunspots and restoration. We also add 2 other sources of healing on top of that, and I think the Sunbreaker Titan really shows off the best of Solar 3.0 because it has everything we need. It has high damage abilities that hit like a truck, great healing to survive a lot of difficult content, and crazy ignitions that can one-shot champions in difficult content, and Lightfall will only make this build better. If you are new here and find this video helpful or enjoyable, then make sure to hit that subscribe button for awesome Lightfall builds to come with the new Strand subclass as well. For your Sunbreaker Super, choose whichever you like. Both have their merits and both can actually be buffed by melee exotics, so remember that. For your abilities, we're going to take Rally Barricade. I still enjoy Rally Barricade more than Tower Barricade, and it's 10-second shorter cooldown. For your melee, we're going to take Throwing Hammer. You can still do your normal throwing hammer stuff, so you know, throwing the hammer, it struck a target, picking it up grants cure, that's still able to happen. So if you need a quick heal here and there, just throw your hammer at an enemy, get that heal off, and move on. For our grenade, we are going to take Healing Grenade. This thing comes back super quickly because it only has a 1 and 22-second cooldown, and we're going to add a fragment and some abilities to make this Healing Grenade come back very quickly. Also remember, when you apply that restoration to yourself from a Healing Grenade, your teammates can also grab that Healing Grenade, so you can apply healing to the entire team, which is just great. Now for your 2 aspects, we're going to take Consecration. This is the first aspect. This is the new melee aspect that came with Solar 3.0. I still don't see many people using this. I'm not sure why. Maybe they're just still ingrained with that throwing hammer, but man do I love this thing. While sliding, activate your charged melee ability to launch a wave of solar energy forward, damaging and scorching targets in front of you as you leap into the air, so we can scorch all these different enemies that we hit. And then while airborne, activate your charged melee again to slam to the ground and create a second larger wave damaging solar energy. If the wave hits a scorched target, they ignite. So you pretty much have an ignition on demand, and this damage and the ignition damage can be amplified by anything that's giving us more melee damage. So both our exotics can amplify the damage that this thing is going to do. For our second aspect, we're going to take Sol Invictus, of course, so all our solar ability final blows are going to create sunspots for us. So if you do end up throwing your mini throwing hammer at something, or your huge Consecration slam is going to create sunspots when they kill things. Our abilities regenerate faster, and your super drains more slowly while standing in sunspots. And then sunspots also apply scorch and deal damage to targets inside. Entering a sunspot also applies restoration to yourself. So sunspots do a lot for us, and the main thing is just that extra restoration. Now for our fragments, we're just going to buff ourselves up and get these abilities back really quickly. So the first one is Ember of Torches. We're going to be using that powered melee attack Consecration. This is still going to provide radiant to us and our allies when we use this, so a 25% weapon damage boost to everybody is always great. Next, we're going to take Ember of Solace. Radiant restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. The main reason we're taking this is it's going to bump that Healing Grenade up, and it's going to bump our Sunspot up with their restoration time. So the Sunspot actually is 8 seconds now. Before this season, before they changed the Ember of Solace, I believe it was only 5 seconds, so technically Sunspot's got a slight buff with that. Next, we're going to take Ember of Blistering. Defeating targets with solar ignitions grants grenade energy. So to feed that Healing Grenade, we're going to defeat targets with that Consecration slam. That's going to be our solar ignition, and that's just going to provide grenade energy for us. You can get a ton of grenade energy back really quickly too when you kill 3 or 4 enemies at a time with that slam. And then lastly, we're going to take Ember of Searing. Defeating scorched targets grants melee energy. Every time you do that uppercut, that wave of flame that comes out, that's scorching enemies, so when we slam to the ground and defeat them, we get melee energy off of that. So you can kind of see how this ability loop is already going. You definitely want to be rocking 100 resilience if you can, and then aim for higher discipline next. Now for your weapons on the build, it doesn't really matter. You could add something with Incandescent and Demolitionist maybe, that would just feed the ability loop even quicker. But in something like Grandmasters or harder activity contents, you actually have to match champions. So for now, the loadout doesn't really matter. For the mods on the build, our helmet is going to be Bountiful Wells. So every time that we spawn a well, we're going to spawn 2 wells. On our gauntlets, we're going to take Elemental Charge. So every time we pick up a well that we spawn, we're going to become charged with light. And then if you can, without the champion mods in there, run Impact Induction, causing damage with a melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown, so we just feed that healing grenade for that survivability. On the chest piece, we're going to run melee well makers, so every time we do kill something with concentration and we slam to the ground, we're going to create 2 solar wells because of Bountiful Wells, and also just add your damage reduction to the chest as well. And then our chest piece is our exotic of choice, that is Heart of Inmost Light, so using the ability empowers the other abilities and makes them come back even quicker. Now the damage is slightly lower on our concentration slam than it would be with Synthoceps, and Synthoceps is your second option. So it's up to you between the 2 that you choose, but Synthoceps is going to buff that melee damage even higher and allows us to one-shot champions. I've done 2 or 3 videos on this in the past, so if you guys want to go back and check those out, you can, on how strong this thing can really be. But Heart of Inmost Light makes the build just simply easier. So it's up to you which one you choose, but I would go with Heart because more abilities, more survivability, you're still putting out great damage, and overall I think it just makes the build feel a bit better. You're never waiting on that melee, that's for sure. On our boots, we are running heavy-handed, so every time that we're charged with light and we use our melee ability, we're going to get half of that back. This does work with the Consecration Slam, and we're always charged with light because we're picking up wells from those Consecration Slams. And then on our class item, we're going to have Well of Life, so when we pick up that solar well that's on the ground, we're going to get extra healing from that. Now I believe this does not stack with Restoration, so a lot of times you won't see this pop up, but it's just for those in-betweens, like if we didn't create a sunspot, or if for whatever reason we only had a well and we picked it up. You could also drop Well of Life here if you want. You could throw on another Bountiful Wells to create 3 solar wells. There's a lot of different options here, or maybe Explosive Well Makers so the ignition can spawn a well, but that's up to you guys. And then I was also running Double Bomber on the class item just to get that grenade back even quicker, so we always have that healing grenade in our pocket if we need some extra help. This is by far my favorite way to play the Solar Titan, and I hope you guys give it a try and enjoy it. I find it so much more enjoyable than just throwing my little throwing hammer. Even if the throwing hammer might be a bit better, I will do this on a Solar Titan any day over the throwing hammer. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it.